Where is my presentation now? So where is PBL, PBL, PBL? Okay. Let me arrange this thing, let it go down. How can I ask this? This goes down now, okay. And let me take this thing on one side. इसको बंद कर देता हूँ मैं, okay. And इसको नीचे ले आता हूँ. Now what I do is that I create this. I take it down. So we are talking about is a problem-based learning. And where is, let me take out one thing more. And yes, there is chat is ऊपर है, ठीक है. So what I do is कि chat को मैं यहाँ पे ले आता हूँ. अगर जरूरत हुई तो I will do it. Okay, so we are talking about is problem-based learning. ये तो आपने कर लिया. You have read the text, you have sensed the problem, you have identified explanation, you reach to the interim conclusion, and you have defined the specific learning outcomes. So therefore, at the end of the session, the student will be able to enumerate advantages of PBL, explain the domains of learning which are learned in PBL, what are the characteristics of PBL, explain the trigger, list and explain characteristics of 7-jump model of Maastricht, explain process of PBL. So these are the instructional learning objectives or specific learning outcomes of my session with you. By the end of this session, which is 1 year, the students of your course will be able to do these things. Can we take it on this side? No. Okay, इसको मैं और नीचे ले जाता हूँ. हाँ, ठीक है. How can I close it slightly ताकि ज़्यादा ना इसको, कोई बात नहीं, उसको आगे पीछे करता रहूँगा मैं. So therefore, you must understand is that PBL is an excellent small group teaching method or mode of information transfer. World regulatory bodies ये recommend करती हैं कि आप जो अपने स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ा रहे हो अंडरग्रेजुएट लेवल पे, तो उसमें एक टीचिंग मेथडोलॉजी प्रॉब्लम बेस्ड लर्निंग भी इस्तेमाल करें आउट ऑफ ऑल अदर टीचिंग मेथडोलॉजी, जो आप जरूर इस्तेमाल करें. Learning starts with a problem in a problem-based learning approach. You see, as I was giving you example, the learning started with a problem. शुरू में आपको एक प्रॉब्लम दिखाई थी, वहां से लर्निंग स्टार्ट हुई है. And students tackle patient problems, and the problems could be patient problems, it could be health delivery problems, it could be medical science problems, it could be research problems. And as in our case, it was a medical education problem. Okay, undergrad level, since you're making them doctors, so usually the problems are patient problems, which we use. The idea behind problem-based learning is that the starting point for learning should be a problem that a learner wishes to solve. The problem acts as a stimulus for learning in the basic sciences or clinical medicine. The appropriate choice of clinical problem, this is very interesting if you see this thing. The appropriate choice of clinical problem in the early years of the medical course can encourage the students to relevant anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, or other preclinical subjects. So therefore, अगर आप preclinical areas में PBL करा रहे हैं, so in this methodology, relevant applied anatomy, applied physiology, applied biochemistry, community medicine, they can all learn with that. Basic difference from traditional approach. In the traditional approach, it is assumed the student have to have the knowledge required to approach a problem before starting on the problem. For example, अगर मैं ये करता आपको कि पहले मैं पीबीएल के लिए आपको मैं चीजें देता और मैं कहता कि पढ़ के आए और फिर आपको पीबीएल पढ़ाता, तो दैट इज अ ट्रेडिशनल अप्रोच कि पढ़ा हुआ आए पढ़ के आए. That is a traditional approach. But in problem-based learning, knowledge arises from working on the problem. It means if the student has come to attend a PBL session, it is not necessary that he had studied the content which is being studied in problem-based learning. It is not necessary. करके आए तो अच्छे, नहीं करके आए तो फिर भी ठीक है, वो learn कर लेगा. So this is the basic difference from traditional approach. By the way, I'm going to keep last half an hour for question answers, so don't worry. I'm going to answer all the questions. आप नोट करते जाएं. फर्क हो गया ना. देखें, एक में आप कह रहे हैं कि बच्चे हैं पढ़े हैं और पढ़ के आए हैं. एक आप ये कह रहे हैं बच्चों ने कुछ भी ना पढ़ा हो, still they will learn very good in the session. Very interesting, 1960s, McMaster University introduced the problem-based learning method. It is so old. Medical schools subsequently accepted it throughout the world. The concept was given in McMaster University. Then the design of PBL, the PBL का conduct किस तरह करना चाहिए, what should be the conduct of, what should be the process of conducting PBL. There are more than one in this world, but the most widely used is Maastricht's 7-jump model. And you may see any design. You may see a design of the Oxford University. You may see design of Maastricht's model. You may see a design of someone else, but you will find this thing. There is slight variation in the design. Broadly, the design is still same. Now what I'm going to do is, after each slide, I'm going to pause for 12 to 15 seconds so that you can think on what I have told you and you can note your points. And I have this watch with me, and in this watch, by the clock, I will do that. क्योंकि पता ही नहीं मुझे चलता कि किसी में टाइम ये ना हो कि आपको दे ही ना रहूं सोचने का बीच में, and doesn't make any sense to me then. Okay, stopwatch मैंने on कर ली. Next slide. The purpose and advantage of problem-based learning is the student ultimately develops a usable body of integrated knowledge. Meaning by, when he's solving the problem and the problem is clinical, and in order to solve, when he's clarifying the test, trying to find explanations, and then making learning outcomes and trying to learn, so in fact, he gets knowledge of different subjects. And that knowledge is integrated. So there's a fusion of knowledge of different subjects, which results in fusion of knowledge of subject, which is the integration. And marvelous thing is the students develop problem solving ability, because at the end of the day, that is the ability which we want in a student. A patient is a problem, isn't it? A patient comes, it's a problem. You have to solve the problem. And problem solving ability comes by solving the problems. You develop that skill. Not only this thing, since in problem based, students have to come, they have to study, they have to form their own learning outcomes. After that, in the time which is given to them, they have to decide themselves when, what, when, how they want to study. So in fact, you are inculcating in them seeds of self-directed lifelong learner. No other teaching methodology, to my knowledge, encourages self-directed lifelong learning. Maybe you may take it a practical, you may take it a lecture, you may take a demo dissection, you may take a clinical bedside teaching. It's amazing. It's an amazing method if you think of. So I'm taking a break of 15 seconds. And here my starts. A timer. Okay. In fact, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, so less time. We know this thing. There are 3 domains of learning. One is knowledge, one is skill, one is attitude. Now, interestingly, in knowledge, the students learn not only theoretical knowledge, but also learn the clinical knowledge in the preclinical sciences. One is theoretical knowledge of the subject, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and whatever it is, plus clinical knowledge also, because the problem which are given in problem-based learning is a patient problem. If you talk about skill, and I'm not talking about psychomotor skill, I'm not talking about the psychomotor skill domain of learning. I'm talking about skill as in English language, which means ability to do something well. So by going through exercise, they develop problem solving skill. They develop skill of scientific reasoning. They develop clinical thinking skill. They develop communication skills, how to talk to another person, how to listen to other person, how to put in a question, how to control oneself if one is not agreeing. Interpersonal relationships skills, leadership skills, teamwork skills. Tell me any methodology of teaching which we are aware of, like lecture, like small group teaching, tutorials, seminars, demo dissections, laboratory work, lab work, ward round teaching, OPD teaching, in which we develop all of these: problem solving, scientific reasoning, clinical thinking, communication, interpersonal, leadership, teamwork. And then we learn the value of teamwork, attitude. At the end of the day, when a patients come to us, what brings a good outcome? It's not one doctor. It's the whole community of doctors, nursing, doctors, staff, specialists, your doctors, registrars. And wherever there's a teamwork, the results of students going to be better. And wherever the members of the team, they have more problem solving skills, more scientific reasoning skills, more clinical thinking skills, better in communication, interpersonal, leadership, teamwork, better would be the outcome of the patient. So you're seeing problem-based learning methodology. It's not simple learning, physiology, anatomy, biochemistry. That is why McMaster, when he proposed this thing, people loved it. So therefore, this is what is happening. Now the point is in this thing is, which you must realize, मैं भी आपको बता देता हूँ आपको. You see, okay, let me wait for in this slide. Okay. You see, there were a set of 8 learning outcomes which were to be taught. Specific learning outcomes which were to be taught. In traditional way of teaching like lectures, what it's going to take, if there's a class of 150 students, to teach and learn same amount of learning outcomes, you will need one teacher, one place for the students to sit, and 1 hour. You will understand as I talk, to teach and learn same learning outcomes, if there's a class of 150 students, you will be needing 10 to 15 different rooms, 10 to 15 faculty members. And since there are 2 sessions, 3 hours. Same learning outcomes. एक तरफ 1 hour, 1 teacher, 1 place of sitting. एक तरफ 10 to 15 depending upon आप कितने में divide कर रहे हैं. Let us see if you're dividing ideally into 10 students, 1 group, 15 places to sit, 15 engagement of 15 teachers at the same time, and 3 hours. That is why you cannot teach all learning outcomes by this method, because it's not simply feasible. It's so intensive, resource intensive. But in every medical college, our portion of curriculum should be taught by PBL. Characteristics of PBL, they are important. A small group of students, usually 7 to 10. At least 2 sessions. Usually compromises 2 sessions. It should start with a trigger, which is a problem scenario. And to solve the problem, there should be a structured approach to solve the problem, not haphazard, you're trying to solve the problem. And that structured approach is the Maastricht 7 jump model. So therefore, any small group teaching in which the number of students is 7 to 10, there are 2 sessions, 2 different times. The teaching is going to start with the trigger, which is a problem scenario, and to solve the problem and conduct the 2 sessions, there's a structured approach. Then that method will be called as problem-based learning. If any institution is doing something different than that, and they're calling it problem-based learning, तो जाने अजीज, या तो मेरी जात अपने आप को बेवकूफ बना रही है, या वो दुनिया को बेवकूफ बना रही है. Obviously, you can keep the students from 10 to 15 also, in one group 20 also, depending on resources. But more the number of students going to increase, that is going to affect the learning, as is obvious. You see, when we were 4 groups, 5 groups जब हमने ये शुरू किया था, अगर हम ही इसको पढ़ रहे होते तो हमारी लर्निंग बहुत बेहतर होनी थी, जबकि आप लोग 50 बैठे हुए और मैं 51st हूँ. Compromise in learning. These are compromises in learning. Reflection time, 15 seconds begins. जिनको नोट्स बनाने का शौक है, वैसे नोट्स भी बनाएं. It's a good habit. Okay, next slide. Trigger material, just like you talked, it's certain which triggers the thought of the patient, the thought of the student, as you were talking about. Most commonly is a paper-based clinical scenario is the most commonly trigger material which is used. Like in our case, it was a paper-based clinical scenario. But since I had to do a PowerPoint presentation, so I had just shown you that paper. In 99% of problem-based learning, I think so, the people are using paper-based clinical scenario. But other trigger material could be clinical laboratory data only, could be a photograph, video clips, it could be even a real or simulated patient, or you can also combine this with paper-based clinical scenario in the modern era of artificial intelligence or IT. But trigger material, which is most commonly used at present in the world in medical colleges, is a paper-based clinical scenario. Example of trigger material is, which I have done already. This is the example of trigger material. So therefore, what you do is, the teachers who want to make a problem-based learning, which you people are going to do is, okay, first, you should find out what are the learning outcomes which you want to teach to the student. So different specialists, subject specialists, they sit together. If you have a modular system or integrated system of teaching, they should define the learning outcomes. And then based on that learning outcome, they should make the trigger. This is reverse engineering. And people in my college, they very fondly call it Shukr's reverse engineering of constructing PBL, because they used to make PBL. I said, no, don't make it like that. Or CVS module is coming, we are doing it. So let's bring all the CVS and find out common learning outcomes linked to each other and then make it. Maastricht 7-jump model. First jump step is students working in a group clarify the text of the problem scenario by reading the text, identifying words, phrases, or concepts that they do not understand, and find the meaning to understand the information. This is the first step which was done by the 5 students, जिसमें मैं भी था, when a trigger period was presented to us. Group in second jump or second step, group defines the problem by sensing the problem and formulates the problem in word. So therefore, once we are clear about the text and we can understand what's written in that, then we sense what is the problem in this. And once we sense there is a problem, then we put the problem in words. Like when we 5 were doing it PBL, we sensed there is a problem with the teacher. And what is the problem? Possibly he doesn't know or doesn't know how to teach. So we put it that the teacher is not trained or teacher does not know how to conduct PBL. That is the second jump. Third is brainstorming identifies explanation for phenomena observed in the problem scenario. This is exactly what we did. Okay, now we know what the problem is. We know what we do not understand. So let's discuss among ourselves. Okay, what is PBL? It's the same outside, it's a problem-based, it's project-based, what it is, and we are doing this and trying. And when we're doing brainstorming, we are reaching to an interim conclusion. Like, okay, problem-based learning could be a problem-based learning or project-based learning. This is an interim conclusion. Interim means temporary conclusions or provisional conclusions. Okay, methodology could be, okay, what we do is, okay, there's a session of 3 hours and there's a break. No, it's session of 2 hours and there's no break. And we write this interim conclusion. And when we're writing interim conclusion, we are very clear that what we don't know. And what we don't know, formulates the learning outcomes, specific learning outcomes. So these are the 5 steps or 5 jumps of mastery. What about the next? The 6th jump is students work independently to achieve the learning outcome. And obviously last would be the student reconvene to discuss knowledge acquired. 7 steps. Number 1, clarifying the text of the problem solver. Number 2, sensing the problem, defining the problem in words. Number 3, identifying explanations of phenomena. Number 4, reach interim conclusion. Number 5, working independently. Number 6, reconvene and discuss what has learned. Okay, repeat with me. Number 1, clarifying the text of problem. Come on, don't worry if your children are also seeing that you are working like this, but come on, repeat with me. You remember it. First jump, number 1, clarify the text of the problem scenario to understand it. Number 2, sense the problem, what is in it, and define the problem in words. Number 3, identify explanations of the phenomena, brainstorm and discuss it. Number 4, reach interim conclusion. Number 6, work independently. Number 7, the student group reconvene to discuss the problem.
Sir, 5 और 6 नहीं समझ लग रहा.
5 and 6. 5 is different. 5 is बहुत फर्क है. 5 में तो आपने लर्निंग आउटकम आपने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिए, उसके बाद क्लास खत्म हो गई. जो ग्रुप है वो लर्निंग आउटकम्स अपने साथ लेके चला गया. उसके बाद इन इट्स ओन टाइम वो लर्निंग आउटकम्स हासिल करने के लिए खुद पढ़ रहा है, चाहे वो खुद पढ़े, चाहे वो ग्रुप्स में पढ़े, चाहे जिस मर्जी टाइम में पढ़े. दैट इज द 6th जंप, दैट इज द 5th जंप, सॉरी द 6th जंप. और उसके बाद फिर वो वापस आ जाएगा.
तो 6th वाला अलग.
मैं इसको ऊपर ले जाता हूं ताकि आपकी क्लैरिटी हो जाए. तो 5th के बाद अगर हम चले 6th पे, तो 6th जंप में द स्टूडेंट्स की क्लास खत्म हो गई है और वो घरों में चले गए हैं. और 7th जंप के लिए वो दोबारा आए हैं.
ये दूसरा सेशन हो गया इनका.
Oh, lovely. So now you are talking. So therefore, अगर मैं इसकी बात करूं मैं, तो अगर हम सेशंस ऑफ पीबीएल की बात करें, तो फर्स्ट 5 जंप्स आर द फर्स्ट सेशन. And break between first and second session, then there's a break, which is the 6th jump, and second session is students coming back and discussing the knowledge acquired. फिर रोल टीचर का रोल क्या हुआ? ये सब स्टूडेंट कर रहे हैं. The teacher in fact has a very important role because teacher encourages all group members to participate. Teacher assists the group dynamics. The teacher assists the student who is taking the role of a chair, a role of the timekeeper, कि उनके काम में उनको assist करता है. Then there is another role of a student, which is the scribe who writes like I was writing. तो टीचर इससे ख्याल रख रहा होता है कि जो स्टूडेंट लिख रहा है वो रिकॉर्ड सही कर रहा है या नहीं कर रहा. Ensures group achieves the appropriate learning outcomes. Meaning by in the first term, जब स्टूडेंट्स ने खुद लर्निंग आउटकम्स निकाले हैं कि जी उन्होंने सीखने हैं, तो टीचर सीज दिस थिंग, आर द स्टूडेंट